Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to some Toronto Raptors news, Riker. And if people have been following the TikTok, they've seen that Goran Dragic has been completely done. He's popping back up into the Raptors news sphere, showing up to Miami Heat games after being away from the team and collecting a $19 million paycheck, Riker. But Doug Smith gave us a deep dive on the whole Goran Dragic situation, and it's some exciting news if you're a Toronto Raptors fan, Riker. And the headline of the article, it's definitely a good read, definitely check it out, but Raptors finding great interest in Goran Dragic deal before the NBA trade deadline. Now, for a lot of this season, Riker, we've looked at Goran Dragic as a guy that we've brought it up on videos. We think would be bought out by the Toronto Raptors because no one seems to be interested in this guy, because if they were, a trade would have already happened. But Doug Smith is contradicting that idea right now. What are your thoughts on this report coming out?
Well, if it looks like poop and it smells like poop, it's probably poop. Then this to me seems more like one of those artificially drummed up propaganda pieces to get talks about Goran Dragic started. I just don't see what teams might, because I'm thinking, who's the trade partner? Who wants to pick up this guy's contract? And obviously there'd be two benefits. One, you want to pick up a guy who has no extra years left, so you can clear up some cap space to do some signings this offseason. Or two, perhaps you look at the Dragic of past years, a guy that's been deep in the postseason with the Miami Heat, and you think he has a little bit extra left in the tank to give you some scoring off the bench. Not sure if there's many teams in that scenario that don't have their backup point guard yet, so I'm not as hopeful with that, but there is teams that could want to clear some cap space. So Ben, potentially Dallas, maybe others. Who do you have that you think could be a partner if there legitimately is serious interest in this guy?
Yeah. Well, in terms of the point on serious interest, Doug Smith is doubling down. He's going hard on this take and saying it's almost certain to be dealt by the February 10th trade deadline, which is obviously coming up in the next week and a half.
Not a buyout. Not a buyout.
Exactly, right? So he's saying that there's been a lot of interest, multiple NBA sources, right? Not just one, not just Jake Fisher, not just some randos, right? Doug Smith is saying he's putting it all on the line out here with this article. So if Dragic doesn't get traded, well, he'll get the Michael Grange treatment, I guess, who said the Raptors are going to be for sure drafting Jalen Suggs during this summer's draft, and that made me buy a Suggs cake, which was quite unfortunate. But Riker, Doug Smith, I'm keeping it in line with this article. He first talks about the potential deals that could be made, and the first sort of scenario that he talks about is trading for a guy that's similarly on a big expiring contract that could help the Toronto Raptors through the end of the season. Now, the Toronto Raptors are currently in buy mode, as we've seen from that Miami Heat blockbuster, one of the best games of all time. Our starting unit is looking nice. They can compete with anyone. If we can just get someone to come off the bench and be valuable, that would be huge for this team. Dragic could potentially net us someone like that. Now, I've been arguing not necessarily a expiring contract, but Buddy Hield and Richaun Holmes would be a trade I'd like to see happen, but that would be something to fortify the bench. But those are big money deal players coming back for Goran Dragic's salary. Is there any other sort of deals you have in your mind that could send Dragic away and bring back someone valuable in return?
Valuable in return. Not so sure. The Athletics' John Hollinger proposed, or he said, consider, for instance, Dallas. That's been the rumor since day one, that they try to link him up with Doncic, the Slovenian natives. And by the way, I'll say this every time, in support of Dragic, who we never got to see anything spectacular on Toronto, but he did win a FIBA International Championship in 2017. He was the MVP, played great there. So you got to give this man a little bit of props, because he's been a baller. He's been in the NBA 13 seasons, but they're saying that maybe Dallas would give up, let's see, Dwight Powell, Trey Burke, and a first. And then he's saying first might be ambitious, but that would give them cap space to sign Jalen Brunson and Finney Smith. I guess that makes sense. why Dallas would want to do that. But Ben, you and I both agree. Dwight Powell, he's averaging 20 minutes. There's injury concerns, obviously, with him. But in his 20 minutes, he's played 50 games this season, 20 minutes of action. He's only averaging 4.5 rebounds and less than half a block a game. So while he's a 7-foot big, he's probably going to give you less production than our 6'9" bigs. And then Trey Burke, who had pretty good postseason performance 2 seasons ago. He's really dropped off. He's only shooting 30% from 3. And seasons prior, he was like a 42% shooter from distance. Now he's only playing, I don't know, 25 games this season. No real scoring from him. I don't like that trade at all, Ben.
Yep. And I saw a tweet pop up. I thought it might have been a Dragic trade, knowing our luck, but it ended up being a different all-star Woj bomb or something about Monty Williams. I glossed it over. But in terms of that Dallas Mavericks deal that you brought up, if we can get a first for Dragic, I think we do it, just because Masai Ujiri is a wizard with drafting in the first round. And, the higher the pick, maybe it's valuable. And if they can't relieve that cap space, if they can't get off those guys, I could see why Dallas would potentially go in that scenario. However, I'm not high on Trey Burke whatsoever. I don't even think he could play in Canada due to his vaccination status. So that's one thing with Trey Burke. He wouldn't address any concerns in terms of being a backup guard that could provide any minutes for this squad. And secondly, Dwight Powell, yes, he's Canadian, but are you taking him over Kem Birch, Precious Achiuwa, who's been up and down this season? Certainly not a Chris Boucher. I don't think he's in our big man rotation, which is kind of crazy to say.
No, and there's no real contract concerns. That's the one thing. If they do pull trigger on a trade like this, while Powell's contract is $11 million a year, it expires at the end of next season, which is when most of our big signings come up. The only guy that we have to try and get back in free agency is Chris Boucher, who apparently wants $14 million or more on the open market. And you have been putting his name in a couple of our speculation trades. That's how you would have got the Buddy Hield and Rashawn Holmes one done. So we'll see what happens there, but he's been really our only good consistent scorer off the bench. He's gave us great minutes. And then Kem Birch has just been kind of in and out. So we're getting Achiuwa sometimes off the bench, sometimes in the starting lineup. I'd like a guy like good Timberwolves if you get back what's his name, Patrick Beverly, or the Celtics if you got a guy like Marcus Smart, like just kind of a dog point guard, shooting guard off the bench. I just don't see why any of those teams would want Dragic, but that's a player that I'd kind of like in return. Just like you said, we'd need a guy that can give you some production, because having our starters play 40 plus minutes a game, it's eventually going to wear them out.
Yep, for sure. And now there's a couple of other scenarios that Smith brings up in his article. The second one being attaching a first to Dragic, to a Dragic deal instead of receiving a first from the Dallas Mavericks, attaching one, and then bring back a player that the Raptors would want longer term. Expect to be about $30 million per year under the tax and all that sort of stuff, right? Luxury tax mumbo jumbo. But Ryker, one guy that's been attached, we might have to make a whole video on him, just solely off the amount of times he's been brought up, but Norman Powell has been put onto the trading block by the Portland Trail Blazers. We send out Dragic's contract, the money lines, we throw a first-round pick in there for Portland so they can draft someone nice. Who says no to this deal? Even if we throw in would you even throw a Chris Boucher on top of that for a potential Norman Powell reunion?
No.
Really?
Because now we have no scoring big off the bench. I'm keeping Chris Boucher unless we're getting back a big plus somebody else in return.
20 points per game, Norm, shooting 45% for three.
Yeah, but we have no big off the bench, Ben. We have no
Precious.
big off the. You need, but come on, come on. I'm not trading Boucher unless we're getting a 7-footer, a good 7-footer back, like a Miles Turner, or Sabonis, or a Mo Bamba, or somebody that can give you points and rebounding and blocks. That's the only way that's going to happen for me. But I wasn't aware that Powell's on the block now. So that's pretty interesting news. Yep. I'd give him some of our young guys, because I don't know if they're going to make that trade, because I thought Dame said, as soon as you say we're going to tank, I'm definitely out. I thought that was like the latest commentary. This would definitely be a move to tank if you're just unloading contracts at that point. But how sweet would it be? I'd give Dragic and Yuta and Malachi Flynn, I'd give him a bunch of our young guys, I'd give them a pick, give them all, and bring back Norm Powell. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'd like to see Norm. We need that scoring punch off the bench. So especially if Boucher's a free agent this offseason, net someone, maybe you can get one of those backup Cody Zeller.
That'd be
or
the
something.
maximum fleece. We get Gary Trent Jr. from them and get Norvell back the very next season.
Bring him home. That's something I like to see. And then obviously the craziness happens with the third sort of scenario. And this is something that's been brought up a lot by, people sort of reporting on this outside of Doug Smith. But if the Raptors get wooed by the chance to obtain a very high-priced player on the market, could expand a deal by adding a Toronto player under contract and some major multiplayer transaction. Riker, I've heard Nickeil Alexander-Walker as a guy that Raptors fans want, right? There's obviously bigger names on the market, whether it be Sabonis, Turner, right? Players all across the league. Yusuf Nurkic, I'm going back to the Pacers, Blazers, teams that are looking to blow things up. Any player that's sort of a bigger name that obviously you need a multiplayer transaction deal to happen that you can sort of think of off the top of your head?
It's way too speculative at that point. I already pitched it out, was Miles Turner. You didn't want to trade real players for him. You think he's not that caliber guy. But if we're just talking bench players and picks and guys that we're just going to buy out anyways if there's no trade at the deadline, then I would certainly give lots. And that, I mean, all of these wild scenarios that you're saying, that's in the spirit of buyers, right? Sellers means you're just looking to put one of our guys on the market and get stuff in return. Buying would suggest that we're looking to give value in order to get something back that we want. So I would suspect if that's been put out there that's going to be our strategy of this trade deadline, that we're going to see us either put a couple picks or a guy like Boucher on the block as well and get a real haul back, not just a kind of a filler piece. So I'm excited. Hopefully something does go down.
Yep. No, without a doubt. Right. Send Dragic to Orlando. Maybe get a couple pieces down there. Bamba and someone random. I don't know. I've also seen Alec Burks on the potential the rumor list. So lots of players to be thrown out. We're definitely going to be making our classic, our yearly 5 blockbuster trades video. So don't worry about that, folks. But we're going to be lots of content coming surrounding the NBA trade deadline. So subscribe to Raptors Digest. You guys are the best at making this far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all of that cool stuff. Riker, do you have any last words on Goran Dragic likely being traded by this team?
Good riddance and adieu, Ben. Cheers.